All right, here we are, rock and roll. Welcome to the Scorched Earth podcast for Thursday, January 30th. Wow, January, I barely even knew you. And as always, please, sincerely, hit the subscribe, hit the like, leave some comments. I actually got a great story for tonight's podcast from one of the listeners. God bless her, Toasty. She is a real fan of the show, and I really appreciate everybody reaching out and giving this podcast a lot of love. You know, I know we're starting out. I know we're trying to do something organic. I guess, nothing's built in a day, but the comments, and I want to say I'm going to get to the comments. Like I have said, I'm technologically retarded. I know that's not the politically correct thing, but I've went to the iPhone in the last couple days, and I am telling you, I am flummoxed on flummoxed. And I'm not even sure that's a thing. Let's just call it flummox squared, okay? That I am confused on confused. And every time, so God bless her, superstar producer Stacy helps me, and she is so patient. And I can tell in the back of her mind, she's like, my dog can do this. My cat can do this. Why can't you? And I'm like, oh boy. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll move on. So where I want to start tonight is Trump and the move towards dictatorship. Now, everybody, most of the audience is on the left, progressive, moderate, whatever you want to call it. And we're always sitting here yelling and screaming about he's going to take away democracy and he is going to put it in his pocket. He's going to become an authoritarian. And there's some truth to that, maybe. But, I really started doing some research for tonight's podcast. And I was wondering, what did Republicans say about Obama? Now, I love Obama, but at the end of the day in this podcast, I want to have truth to what we're talking about. So I started doing some research about Obama and his executive orders. And he had a lot of executive orders too. Remember one thing, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat, they all want power, especially in the executive branch, in the presidency. They want power and they never give it back. They don't want to give it back to the people. They don't want to give it back to the country. You think about how incredible George Washington was. He was the president. He defeated the British. He established America. He was one of the stalwarts of the democracy, and they wanted to make him a king. And that cat said, no, I'm going to go to Mount Vernon. I'm going to go chill. I'm going to, probably carve myself a new set of teeth or whatever he did. But he left the power. And you wonder how this country would have been different if we would have put in a king or a tyrant. And ever since then, we've had, look, if somebody runs for president, there's a huge ego there. Doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican. You have to have an ego to tell everybody, I should run the world. I mean, really. That's a pretty big statement. And so we come through, and the founders did a really nice job trying to separate the three branches of government. The judiciary checks on the legislature checks on the executive nominates the judiciary, so and so. But the goal is for them to make power, keep power, and they only have 4 or 8 years, or maybe in Trump's 12, we'll see, to make their mark. They're not going to go back to the Senate. I mean, I remember back in the day, Gerald Ford was the president after Nixon resigned. And 4 years later, there was the rumor, and I remember this. This is back before mass media really started, or something organic like this where you could get something on your phone, that at the RNC in 1980, there was a rumor was Gerald Ford was going to be the vice presidential candidate for Ronald Reagan's ticket. And he ended up demurring that. And at the end of the day, that really is all you need to know, because once you've been president, nothing else really satisfies. You know, it's like a Snickers. Once you've had a Snickers, you can't go to the O. Henry bar. Sorry, it's just feeble and weak. I've got to stay with the Snickers. I'm monogamous to Snickers. And once you've had that taste of power, you don't want to go anywhere else. You're not. Is Obama going to run for senator? Is he going to run for governor? No. You know, it's Bush. He went away. You know, he didn't. He had his 8-year run, and then that was it. And so coming back to, we're seeing, you know, like I said, we're seeing what Trump is doing. And I went back into the Obama administration, and there was a lot of executive orders there. Remember this. There's two things that go on that the media really doesn't report on. Is they make executive orders to put in their wishes, but they also have the ability not to enforce legislation. We're seeing that currently with Trump on the Obamacare. He has put out an executive order in the last 2 days where, this is according to NPR, I'm going to try and source things when I can, when they're adequate, when they're relevant, is that he is not going to enforce the employer mandate. Now, I don't know what that is. I'm not going to be Chicken Little and say the world's coming to an end, but okay. That's the power that a president has. So I went back in the Obama administration, and actually I ended up on the Chuck Grassley, the elderly senator from Illinois. And I'm not going to say he's been around a long time, but he interned for George Washington, okay? He's been there. And he was talking about all the illegal executive actions of Obama. And some I saw. He also highlighted in the 2014 State of the Union address. Now, this is really important for everybody out there. Obama was talking about giving a blanket mass amnesty for immigrants. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't remember that. And Chuck Grassley was talking about how illegal that is. So on the other side, when we're talking about Trump, now, Obama didn't go through with that. But I'm sure he made it easier for people to come into the United States. I mean, let's be realistic. On the other side, we have Trump saying, I'm going to do mass deportations. That's just all part of the purview. And the thing is, I remember back in the day, in the 1990s, Pat Riley, the Lakers coach, went over and he was coaching the New York Knicks. And he became a defensive type of guy, and his philosophy was to foul the other team on every play, because they can't catch everything. They can't call everything. And eventually they're going to get tired of fighting. And isn't that basically what Trump is doing with all these executive orders? He's pushing everything and hoping things get through the crack to, understandably so, increase his power. Like any president would do, Democrat or Republican. Now, here's where it gets real tricky is you have half of the legislators are part of whatever president his party is, and they're not going to do a check on him. So the other side sits up and jumps up and down, goes to the courts, yells Rumpelstiltskin, whatever. And slowly but surely, we erode away the power of all the legislation, of all the judiciary. I mean, now we're looking at, and I will say this, I'll give Trump his props, in his first administration when he had judicial rulings against him, he abided by them. He obeyed them. He said, okay, I didn't like it. He'd go on a rant, but he'd say, okay, I don't know what's going to happen this time. I hope he does. But in the fear mongering, which is out there, because I'm on the losing side of this coin, and I am worried. But you know what? The erosion started, and I don't know. Is there a man or a woman out there who actually does want to genuinely give back power to the people? I don't know. And it's that branch is becoming more and more powerful, and I think that is the swamp. It doesn't matter if it's a Democrat or a Republican. They're both picking and choosing what it is. And, we have to be honest as liberals or moderates or whatever your persuasion is, if our party's in power, we think it's all kumbaya when they abuse the executive orders. Well, yeah, okay, because they're doing good. But at the end of the day, they're taking away our power. Now, I will say this, we have more rights than we've ever had. I'm not one of these people. Those people are idiots who say, oh, we lose rights every day. Yeah, but 20 years ago, we didn't have social media. We didn't have this. This wasn't possible. I wasn't going to be on CNBC. I might be in the latest Brad Pitt movie, but I wouldn't be on CNBC, right? I have a venue for people, and this is going to be out there for literally 100 years. It's going to be out there in the ecosystem, and it's never going to go away. Long after I'm in the grave, which, might be about another week, the way Trump's going, this will still be there. Nobody will be going to it, but, it is what it is. So let's get back to the couple topics in the news. The Trump administration literally did a Dancing with the Stars move and did a total 180, not 360, 180, Wednesday on stopping the freezing of federal grants and loans. Now, here was the statement out from the OMB, which is part of the Trump administration. Now, listen to this. OMB memorandum M.25.13 is rescinded. If you have questions about implementing the president's executive orders, please contact your agency general counsel. Now, I know one thing about government. If they can give you a yes or no, they will give you more words than were in War and Peace. I'm telling you, they like to write. They like to be able to slap themselves on the back and go, oh, do you see how we use iambic pentameter? That was a terse statement. That was a middle finger to the judge who stopped it, to Republicans behind the scene who are getting overwhelmed by their constituents calling their office and saying, do I got my student loans? Do we have Medicare? Do we have Meals on Wheels? Are we feeding seniors? Are we going to feed there's a lot of things that the government does. And I'm going to give the devil his due here. Trump told us this was coming. I will applaud him. I'm thankful. My personal opinion is I don't think he's a very astute or smart guy, but he tells you straight out. I mean, I think on a certain level, yeah, I'm going to say this. On a certain level, he's more honest than Biden was. Biden would tell you, and then he'd just kind of click out here behind the scenes. He wouldn't come out. Trump's out there. He's telling you I'm going to deport people. Now, whether people believe him or they think it's brouhaha or he says a lot of stuff and it always doesn't always come to action or whatever, well, that's on you. At the end of the day, it's like the great line from Joaquin Phoenix in 8mm. Please, kids, don't watch that movie. It's way too sadistic. He says, when you dance with the devil don't change. The devil changes you. And that's where Trump is. He's been I would say as a politician, and this is probably why he does have enormous support, he is on a certain level incredibly honest. We may not like what he's saying, but that guy is saying what people haven't heard from a politician in a long time. And even Obama, who I thought was a very contrite and sincere guy, at the end of the day, he was a politician too. He wanted power. He wanted to, improve the world. And, I think he did. But at the end of the day, here we go, right? So now we get a report from the Daily Mail that Trump is stopping $50 million to Gaza. Now, this came from his press secretary, Carolyn Leavitt, which that's an interesting conundrum right there. In the first administration, he didn't really believe in the press secretary. I mean, he believed in it. He had them, Kayleigh McEnany and Alyssa Milano, or the lady on The View. but they just never came out. I mean, I think there was a 6-month stretch where the press secretary didn't even do a daily briefing, right? Until COVID came, and then everything changed. But I will applaud. I hope that the president does have daily press briefings. We'll see. He is accessible to the press. He does love the camera. He does love the accolades. But Trump, she announced yesterday that they were going to stop the $50 million to Gaza. And she claimed in her press conference that it was going towards condoms. Yeah, I guess they're really, when you're getting bombed, nothing says, I'm going to resist, I'm going to make a stand by making love. Like, wow. I mean, this is like a bacchanal. I mean, this is like Caligula. I mean, what do they think's going on in Gaza? But okay. She said they're taking the $50 million for condoms and they're going to put it into bombs. Yeah. Just let that sit for a second. So when Trump came out yesterday and had his press conference on signing the Laken-Riley Act, the press came at him, asked him about it. He doubled down. Got to respect the guy. Just never surrender. Yes, it was going for condoms. They were going to take the condom money and turn it into bombs. And, I thought when I was a kid, recycling bottles was innovative. I mean, condoms, the money for condoms. Yeah. I wonder, do you think the U.S. military spends $50 million for America for condoms a year? I doubt that, but that's what it is. I look at these things. For when we're going to do our podcast, and sometimes I just got to do a double take. You can see it right now. I'm kind of like, that story just happened. All right. So now we're going to go to a story that was given to me by one of the listeners. And Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Now, she is the lady, I call her the dog killer. She is the one who put down her 14-month-old puppy. She's former governor of South Dakota. Put down her 14-month-old puppy because it killed a chicken and didn't obey her. Yeah, let that sit. This lady is running Homeland Security. This is the lady who's going to make decisions on immigrants. Yeah, that lady is going to decide if people can have a good life. So they reversed the temporary protected status of 300,000 Colombians. And I don't even know where we go with this. I mean, Trump did tell us that this was coming. Also, there's 100,000 Ukrainians. The Daily Mail also is reporting that there's 100,000 Ukrainians and 13,000 Albanians who are under protected status. Now, they were given that status in the last month by Biden, and he was, quote unquote, going to protect them from the deportation that was going on from Trump. And I saw a very interesting thing. I was given this by the listener about what these deportation flights are costing. And previously, when Homeland Security did a flight from, we're going to use El Paso to Guatemala City, that would run $6,000, give or take, $5,700 to be exact. They would put 80 people on there. They'd charter a flight. They'd send it there, come back, end of story. Trump, in the 2 flights he sent down there last week, spent, wait for it, $700,000 on each flight for 80 passengers going back. Now, what is it going to be for the flights to Venezuela? What is it going to be for the flights for Colombia? And this is coming out of the military's budget. So they have had to reallocate funds to be able to cover these mass deportation flights that now the military is running. And I'm assuming this is just for press. I mean, why can't you, since you run Homeland Security, have them charter flights whenever? Why do we have to have the military do it now? I'm a little, as we said earlier, flummoxed squared. That'll be the key phrase of the day. But we also find out in reporting by CNN that 1,500 active duty troops from Camp Pendleton have been deployed to the southern border for immigration. And I guess we can sit here and say potato, but the military isn't there for immigration. They are there to protect us. You don't change that mindset. You don't change that mindset. And to me, you weaken the military when they have to do things that are not military oriented. That's all I'm going to say there. And finally, from the file of Big Tech Performs Oral Sex on Trump, Part 15, today, or yesterday, Trump signed a settlement that ends his lawsuit he brought against Meta and Facebook after the company suspended his Facebook account following the January 6th riots. For a while, he was off Twitter. He was basically ostracized until Kevin McCarthy went down and threw the olive branch to him, which he claims he didn't do, but, it's a little late now. So in the vein of, and I'm sure you saw this, ABC, George Stephanopoulos making some comments I thought were incredibly benign, and Trump sued him because he said he was convicted of sexual assault, and Trump and his lawyers basically were nuancing it, and ABC settled for $15 million. Bob Iger, man, when did you start selling out? Disney doesn't have enough money to fight? I mean, really? Is this Oral Sex Part 5 from Big Media? So Meta is going to pay $25 million. 22 of it will go to the Trump Presidential Library, whenever that is going to be built. To me, I don't think you need that much money. We can call Porta Potty and just bring in one. Okay, there's the Presidential Library. It makes it easier. In the first administration, wasn't he flushing down documents down the toilet? Isn't that what his advisors reported numerous times? Hey, just dump him in the porta potty. Just call for another pickup instead of once or twice a week, every day. It'll be a lot more efficient than mountain disposal for shredded documents. The other $3 million is going to go to his lawyers. Of course, they're going to get that. The settlement is after Zuckerberg. And I don't know if you've seen pictures of Mark Zuckerberg, but wouldn't you think a guy worth all those billions of dollars could afford a better rug? I mean, do the Jeff Bezos, shave the head, or just get a better hairpiece? I mean, I'll give you a little story. Back in the day, it was 4th of July. I don't even know when. And I was shooting craps at Caesar's Palace. And we're shooting craps since 4 a.m, and the table's full. And the stick man looks at me and goes, "Hey, you know who that guy is shooting the dice?" And I go, "Who's that guy?" And there was a guy over there, just normal looking Italian dude, and he's got a big hole in the top of his head. He's got a big bald spot. And I go, "Who's that?" And he goes, "That's Al Pacino." I go, What do you mean that's Al Pacino?" And I looked at him, and it was Al Pacino. And I see Diane Keaton behind him, just lucky lady. She gets to watch her man play craps. I'm like, wow, the price of celebrity. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I never knew that in any of the movies, right? Why can't Zuckerberg just get a nice hairpiece? John Travolta had one for a long time. We didn't even know. I mean, come on. Okay, so you lose your hair. Okay, hey, man, this is what it is. Get a rug, dude. Get a rug. Get Maury's wigs from Goodfellas. They're good in water. So the settlement comes on the heels of Zuckerberg making numerous trips to Mar-a-Lago after the election victory, of course. Always ride with the winners. And part of what's happened since November is he's removed the fact checkers on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. That's going to help democracy quite a bit, right? Going to make this a safer place with no fact checkers. Maybe the kids, when they go to school, we don't need the teacher to grade their test. Just give everybody 100. It's all good. Don't worry about it. Zuckerberg also, along with big tech Elon Musk, the cat from Google, donated $1 million to Trump's inauguration. It just smells. It just smells so bad. And Meta also, in the last month, has ended its diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. We don't want any minorities or women in big tech. Perish the thought. And he also was kind enough to name that human douchebag, Dana White, on the board of directors. Yeah. All right. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and please leave your comments. Let's make this our podcast. All right. I love you all. Peace out.